Hello, this is Trev, out of Trev and Simon.
And this is Simon, out of the newly named Simon and Trev.
But you're still listening to Mark Who 42.
Welcome to Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and we have a great show for you today because it's Doctor Who. We get to talk Doctor Who on Mark Who 42. It's amazing. We've got our co-host. We've got Trish Fryer.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. How was your week?
It was a week. I don't know.
It was a week. That's good.
Yep.
Good to know.
Yep.
How was yours?
My week was good. My week was good. We had yesterday at the library, or rather on Saturday at the library, we had made a comic day, May the 4th Be With You extravaganza, where we showed a Star Wars movie, a comic movie, and we gave out some free comics and stuff. So it was kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, Free Comic Day was yesterday, and it was May the 4th, so we kind of tied it together. It was amazing how it worked out that it was on a Saturday, May the 4th.
Yeah, actually, we did have something for yesterday, too. We had a get-together with Great Basin Geeks here in Reno, and we watched Phantom Menace, which I'm like, okay, I'm not the biggest.
Sorry.
Well, the thing is, though, it's the anniversary of Phantom Menace, the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, it did. 1999, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in a couple weeks, we have another meeting where we're on the 25th of March. We're going to watch New Hope because it's the anniversary of A New Hope.
Well, that's fair.
So,
That I give you permission.
That'll be a nice palate cleanser.
Yeah. All right. We also have, and he was talking just a few moments ago, Eduardo M. Fryer. Wow, it sounds like they have the same last name. What's going on?
Well, gee, I would hope, that we have the same. Gee, because let's see. In about a month, we'd be celebrating. What is it? 2 years since we got married, Trish.
Oh,
You don't know?
Yeah. Well, I did the
See,
math.
I'm sorry.
I did the math,
sorry,
and it said
wrong.
2. I did the math, and it said 2 years. So
Well,
yeah,
you know how bad you are at math, so.
But I do know because I look at the jewelry that I wear, and there seems to be a ring that indicated some sort of matrimony ceremony took place.
Well, a ring could also come from a Cracker Jack box, so I'm not sure that a ring definitely means matrimony.
Trish, are you listening? Are you listening to this? Do you realize our showrunner has basically made fun of the fact that...
No, I made fun of you, Ed. I didn't make fun of Trish. I made fun of you, Ed.
Two of his co-hosts got married with a Doctor Who themed wedding, where So you're telling me that a Doctor Who wedding ring comes out of a Cracker Jack box?
Hold on.
Really? Okay.
You had a Doctor Who themed wedding, and who wasn't invited to Reno for that? I'm just saying.
I still feel bad about that.
I would have flew there. I would have came. I would have. I couldn't the event here where I live, but I would have flew to you. I'm just okay. We also have who's been quiet all this time listening to this and not saying a word, Zion. Hey,
Hi, Mark.
He's enjoying the show.
Yeah, he's enjoying the show.
100%.
You're listening to the show like our audience is, really. You're not taking part in this.
At least not yet.
Well, we want you to take part in it, so you're going to. Okay. We've actually got a pretty great show for you today. And this show and a series of shows, this will be the first in a series of shows that we'll be doing throughout the year, comes from the mind of Trish Fryer. Because Trish, I asked my co-hosts to come up with some show ideas. And the only one who came up with a show idea was Trish, and it's a great show idea. It's a multiple show idea.
I honestly tried.
That's all right. You come up with something in the next few weeks because you've got a little bit of time after your finals before your new classes.
I was the one who pointed out to you last time that it was National Superhero Day.
That is true. You did point out.
Right. Okay, so yeah.
But that was at the last minute. That was at the last minute. I asked. I asked for a 2-week period of time a month ago. So all right.
Hey man. Superhero fan, you know that last minute saves are my bread and butter, man.
Yeah, that's true. Ed is good at last minute saves.
There you go.
Yeah, so we're not talking about Shazam. I'm sorry. Today's show, we're going to talk about. Well, the series of shows is going to be about favorite characters, important characters, and the actors who played them in Doctor Who. And we're going to start at the beginning. And that would mean William Hartnell, the first Doctor. And yes, the new Whovians would be going, oh, shouldn't that be Christopher Eccleston we're starting with? No, we're starting with Classic Who. And I know a lot of people haven't seen a lot of classic Doctor Who, unless you're true classic fans like Ed and I, and Zion, who have watched a lot of classic Doctor Who, and hopefully a lot of our audience has watched classic Doctor Who as well. Trish is a newbie, so I'm glad that she's participating in this because she has gone back and watched some. So William Hartnell was the first Doctor. He traveled at the beginning in Unearthly Child or 100,000 BC, whichever you want to call the story. He traveled with his granddaughter Susan, played by Carol Ann Ford, with Ian Chesterton, played by William Russell, and with Barbara Wright, played by and here's the elderly problem in my head. Ed, you want to take that answer because I have completely fouled up on Barbara Wright's actress name. Jacqueline Hill. Jacqueline Hill.
There you go.
There, see, it comes back to me. I'm not that old. I'm a little.
I used my telepathy.
There you go. You use your telepathy. All right. So they traveled. They were kidnapped, Barbara and Ian, and by the Doctor, and so and the show lasted with William Hartnell for 3 seasons and 2 stories. And we are going to talk about our favorite characters and the important characters and what they've done in their careers after or even before Doctor Who. And I am going to start, oddly enough, with someone we don't usually start with. I'm going to start with Zion.
Okay.
Yeah. So Zion, go for it.
Do we start off with character or actor?
Yeah, the character. The character. Yeah, we start off with the character, and then you talk about the actor after. And we're all going to participate in this and talk about what we feel if you're right or wrong, or what not if you're right or wrong, because it's your opinion. But we'll give our opinions on your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My character is the bloodthirsty priest. How you say his name? Teotoxal from the Aztecs.
From the Aztecs, Teotoxal.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes, played by John Ringham.
Why is it your favorite character?
Because honestly, out of the entire first season of the 63 series, I found his character the most memorable, just in the way that he acted in all honesty. Like, I didn't want to do a companion because I feel like the companions are a bit easy and whatnot. But yeah, overall, I just really liked his character of the sacrifice priest and how he was pretty much the polarizing way of trying to keep his way of sacrificing and the way of the people. Yeah, so now he started off in a BBC television in Shakespeare's adaptation in Age of Kings in 1960. And
the actor, yeah.
Yes, the actor. And other appearances in years included Z-Cars.
Z-Cars. Let's talk British. Z-Cars.
Okay, fine. Z-Cars.
That's what it was called. It was called Zedcars. So yeah.
While at large, Flambards, Poladark, War
Oh, is it
and
Poldark?
Peace. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
And he would go on to play Inspector Lanner in the Sherlock Holmes '85 adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And he died of cancer in 2008.
That's sad. Okay, so the Aztecs was a story where it was a very important story because it was the first time that it really hit home that you cannot change history. They didn't use the term. They didn't use the term fixed point in time because that came in the new series. But that's what basically was being explained by the first Doctor to Barbara, that there are fixed points in time and you cannot change it. So Barbara had wanted to make the Aztecs stop worshiping their gods and stop sacrificing people because she thought that was immoral. And that is not on her. That you can't do that.
Right.
That would change that would change history completely. The whole causal nexus would unravel. You know, so the character that you're bringing up was a very important character because he did not trust Barbara, and Barbara was being touted at. People thought she was the goddess, and I can't remember the goddess's name.
Atoxa?
Atoxa? Yes, Atoxa.
Atoxa, yeah.
Atoxa, and she was so she could have stopped the sacrifices because she was a goddess and people would listen to her. But the character that Zion brings up, Teotoxl was very suspicious of Barbara and was trying to prove her not being a goddess. Very important role. I do agree this is an important and this is a favorite character of mine too. What do you guys think?
I think good choice, Zion, especially because it's interesting because we have a human villain. This is not this is kind of a different monster of the week type thing. And, also important because of the theme of you can't change history. The fact that this is something it means that we have to deal with it in a different way than just you would expect, oh, okay, it's simply just stopping the guy, the sacrifices and everything. It's now like, okay, we can't go the usual route, so how do we deal with this antagonist when we can't take the usual way of handling things? And that's I think a great early example of what sets Doctor Who apart.
Yeah.
100%.
Trish, do you have any comments?
I've seen the Aztecs, so I mean, I know who you're talking about.
I figured you had.
It's hard for me to comment. I've only seen it once, and that was, back when they were doing the Doctors Revisited before the 50th. That was when I saw it.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while.
And by the way, there is one humorous aside about our friend, the High Priest of Sacrifice. There is a moment in one of the episodes of the Aztecs where he's doing an evil monologue and he looks at the camera to do it. And I tapped into the Mystery Science Theater loving part of me, and I just couldn't help it. I saw that, and I first time I watched the episode, I saw that, and I just blurted out, "And what do you, the audience at home, think?" I mean, it was just right there. It was just right there. I couldn't help myself. Couldn't help myself. It was just right there.
That's good. That's very good. So, Zion, overall, what did you think of the William Hartnell era?
I overall liked it. It is definitely a part that I really want to revisit because when I started off and got through that initial first 6 seasons of Black and White, I didn't really care about it. But after I watched the Twilight Zone, I got a very big appreciation for Black and White TV.
Yeah.
So when I go back and see it, I'm probably going to look at it differently than when I did then, because I did this back in high school. And
I have a question for you. Do you just watch the complete episodes, or do you have the reconstructions?
I watched the complete episodes.
Oh, so so the ones that are missing episodes you skip over.
Yes.
Okay. If you get a chance, and this is for everybody out there, if you want to watch the full thing, there are reconstructions out there that people put together with the audio soundtracks that people recorded of the episodes and stills and the telesnaps. And some episodes don't have telesnaps, so they do like Photoshop stills, and it tells the story. And when some action's going on that they have nothing for, they have across the bottom of the screen what's going on, so you can follow the story. They are really good. The William Hartnell era, I mean, I've seen all of Doctor Who because of the reconstructions, and it's something that you can do. I don't know if it's legally responsible to watch reconstructions, but people have made them themselves, so I guess it's fair game.
Yeah. Overall, like out of 10, I give the era, I'd say an 8.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a very good grounded base of what the show is, and it still impacts the show how it is now. So the format still runs. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Did you ever notice that it's like the Hartnell era is broken up into 2 eras? It's basically the first 2 years of the show are Barbara and Ian teaching the Doctor how to become the Doctor, and then the last season and a half, it's the Doctor.
Yes.
And he becomes recognizable as the Doctor.
Yes, and like I find that so cool because once you look at it as like this is alien who hasn't really like had much interaction with humans up until that level of personality. So like once he like I actually started living with them and traveling with them, he actually eventually like found a connection and kind of drove off it from those interactions.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's move on to Trish. Trish, who is your favorite character or important character from the Hartnell era?
Well, since I have kind of a limited knowledge of the first Doctor, I've only seen very few episodes. So I went with Susan.
Okay, why?
Because out of the episodes I've seen, she's the only character that I've really liked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure how many episodes of the first Doctor I've seen, but she's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I picked her, because it would be hard for me to pick somebody else that, I mean, Barbara and Ian are there too, of course, but
yeah.
I picked Susan, who's played by Carol Ann Ford, and also Carol Ann, that's my mom's name too. So.
Well, then that completely explains it.
and she spells her name Carol the same way my mom does, with an E.
Okay.
She doesn't have and there's no E on the end of Ann, just like my mom too. So I just thought that was cool. But
what else has Carol Ann done?
She's done, she kind of didn't have so much of
an acting career
success. Yeah. After Doctor Who, she actually has said that Doctor Who kind of destroyed her acting career because she got typecasted. And so, she has, done a lot of theater work.
Right.
But she only stayed on Doctor Who for what? A year? Wasn't it just like
year
a
and
year?
Year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah.
Yep. And
she left at the end of Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And since then, she's come back, like for like the 5 Doctors, and she's made some other, brief appearances, and she was in An Adventure in Space and Time for a cameo.
Yeah.
And but she actually hurt her back in 1977 doing a commercial, and she had a horrible reaction to the painkillers that they gave her, and because of it, she lost a lot of weight, and she actually lost her voice, and then her voice did eventually come back.
Wow. Wow.
And actually, since then, she now teaches voice and presentation skills, and she's like a dialogue coach for politicians, businessmen, actors, everything. So that's what she's doing. And yeah. And I mean, she has come back to Big Finish and everything. And we saw her at Galley 1 just in February.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I mean, she's done stuff, but probably not as big as she had hoped back when she was first starting off.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think that Susan actually was the doctor's granddaughter? Or was she just affectionately calling, like, you have an uncle that's really your father's best friend, but you've treated him as an uncle all this time? Do you think she's a true Gallifreyan because, she says she made up the word TARDIS and the acronym, which she didn't? Do you think she's really the doctor's granddaughter? Because this is a question that's plagued the world for a long time.
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
There did seem to be a lot of love between them. There did seem to be a lot of love.
I think so. I don't think they're going to start off the whole show with a lie. And he's old enough,
Yeah.
in the first, incarnation that, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't he have had grandchildren, maybe even? But
Yeah.
I think Susan's his favorite.
And in the Capaldi years, he does mention that he's had a family. So, yeah, it kind of, and he had the picture of Susan on the desk in the school that he was teaching at. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it really is the Doctor's granddaughter, that she is a Time Lord. Time Lord. I'm not going to even use the word Time Lady anymore. They're Time Lords because they can change. So they're Time Lords. What do you think, Ed? Oh, Ed's shut his mic off, so we're not going to even talk to him. Sion, what do you think?
Okay, for about, it all depends. Do you count Looms as canon?
Yeah.
Okay, then no. Okay, then
No?
she's not his granddaughter. I'm like you take it as like the Time Lords and Gallifreyans are really born, but like actually like reincarnated and things and whatnot. Then it doesn't really make sense because Susan isn't really a Time Lord. She's a Gallifreyan.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So she can be a Gallifreyan and then a Time Lord. Right. That's true. The Shobogans. Yeah.
Yeah. It all lies along that. Now, if Looms are not canon, then she could just be a Gallifreyan and yes, a biological granddaughter. Because as you said, Eccleston did say that he was a father and grandfather, but now he's neither or, which also begs the question: is she still alive or not?
Yeah. Ed, I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds before we go to break. Do you think that Susan is the Doctor's granddaughter?
Why not? It's honestly, it's like, yeah, Trish had it best. They seem very affectionate. Why muddle things? Why muddle things and complicate it? She's his granddaughter. They love each other. That's all we need.
All right. So when we come back to Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio, Ed and I will give our greatest characters and actors from William Hartnell's era of Doctor Who. And just a reminder, on the weekends I appear on Doctor Who audio files on Odyssey Radio, where we review Big Finish and other Doctor Who audios. So check odyssey1.com for our listings. We'll be right back.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
I'm Jessica Martin, Mags from The Greatest Show in the Galaxy on Classic Doctor Who. Odyssey. Dare to wonder.
You're now listening to Mark Who 42 from the Whoniverse and beyond.
Welcome back to Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and with me are Zion Quiroz, Trish Fryer, and Eduardo M. Fryer. We are doing Doctor Who this week, folks. We had, in the first half, we started talking about our favorite characters, our most important characters from the William Hartnell era. This is going to be a series of shows intermingled throughout the year where we talk about the Doctors in order and the characters that we found fascinating or important, and the actors who played them and what they did with their careers after or before. And we are now up to Eduardo. So, Eduardo, who is your first Doctor favorite?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with someone who guested twice.
Okay.
I'm going with the meddling monk, as played by Peter Butterworth.
I give you that. I totally agree on that. Go.
Well, because, he, other than the Doctor and Susan, he is the first Time Lord that we've seen in the series. That's not the main character.
Mm-hmm.
And just an interesting character, being the opposite of the Doctor, messing around, trying to introduce things that, are not native to the period.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting to give the Doctor the first, his first opposite. The Master, we have the Master later on. About a decade later. But it's interesting that for this first shot, let's have someone who is the opposite of the Doctor in the sense that they're not trying to keep, they're meddling. They don't. They apparently don't care about the whole fixed moment thing. And I always thought with the meddling monk, he is on my list of characters that I wish they would bring back in the new series.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that what would be interesting is, since we have the Time War, imagine that, we keep the idea of the monk kind of messing around with, introducing stuff that shouldn't be,
mm-hmm.
but that the motivation has changed. So,
okay.
for example, you've had the Time War, and you did have all this devastation. So,
right.
In his mind, for example, he would go back to, let's say the 1400s, 1500s, age of exploration, and if there was going to be a native tribe in South America that was going to get wiped out by conquistadors,
mm-hmm.
he'd show up with machine guns and howitzers and tanks, because it's it shouldn't be right that these poor people are going to get decimated, So in his mind, he's doing the universe a favor, because why should the conquerors pillage like this, So that's something that would, that's something I always thought would be interesting to do with the character.
Something that you just said has brought me to have to say this. Big Finish. They have brought the meddling monk back in Big Finish, played by Rufus Hound. Mm-hmm. Rufus Hound, of course, was in the Capaldi story.
He was Sam Swift, if I remember correctly.
with Maisie Waves. Here is the cool thing. In Missy, the Missy Adventures that they just released a couple months ago, so Michelle Gomez runs into the meddling monk. The meddling monk is disguised. He's disguised as King Henry VIII.
Oh, Jesus.
His TARDIS is not working.
Louise.
And after the Time War, he wants to go back to Gallifrey, because he just wants to go back to Gallifrey, and his TARDIS doesn't work. So he's trying his best to put so many anachronisms and bad things to King Henry VIII that the Time Lords will notice him, because he knows that it came back from the other dimension, and will rescue him. And Missy runs into him, and they're going to get married, because she's disguised as someone, and so she wants to steal a part from his TARDIS. He wants to know how she's traveling, and she's got a vortex manipulator, so she gets out. but the monk and the master were gonna get married.
Oh,
It
geez.
is so funny.
Oh,
It was the
geez.
funniest story in the Missy Box set.
Oh, man.
And Rufus Hound is a great successor to Peter Butterworth.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mr. Butterworth himself.
Uh-huh.
Alas, he is no longer with us.
No.
He passed away January 16th, 1979. He had been doing some theater. He was actually at the Coventry Theater doing a pantomime of Aladdin. And after the showing had finished, he went back to his hotel. And then the following day, when he didn't show up at the matinee, he was found dead of a heart attack.
Oh.
So very unfortunate. His post Doctor Who career, he did a lot of the Carry On films.
Yes, he did.
He did a bunch. Let's see.
So did John Pertwee, but that's another story.
Let's see. We got Carry On Cowboy, Carry On Screaming.
That John Pertwee was a Carry On Cowboy.
Okay, so there we go. Carry On Screaming, Carry On Follow That Camel, Carry On Doctor, and Carry On Again Doctor. Carry On Up the Khyber, Carry On Camping. His last film, which was actually in general release at the time of his death, was The First Great Train Robbery.
Huh.
And he also, about 3 years before, he did have a part in Robin and Marian, which that was the Robin Hood movie that had Sean Connery as Robin Hood.
Cool. Yeah, Peter Butterworth was a great actor. I enjoyed him in the Carry On films. I happen to have the complete collection of.
Okay.
So I can watch this. Barbara Windsor from EastEnders was in those two. Oh my God, those were great, funny movies. William Hartnell was in Carry On Sergeant, the first Carry On movie, and we're talking about William Hartnell, so that actually works. The Meddling Monk, Zion. You've run into the Meddling Monk. What are your opinions on the Meddling Monk?
I love the character. If I'm not wrong, I think the first time I actually ran into the character was in I think it was Lucy Miller. And
okay. So you got into him from the Big Finish. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was prior to me actually watching episode. But overall, I wonder what people thought about another person of the Doctor's race coming in, because up until that point, they weren't really referred to as Time Lords yet.
No,
right?
They weren't referred. He was one of his own people.
Race. Yes.
One of his own race is what they said on the shows. They never actually said Time Lord, because Time Lords that word wasn't used for many years. Time Lord.
Yeah, but overall, I just love random Time Lords like the Monk and all the other things. I feel like the show could use a lot more fleshing out of Time Lords rather than just sticking with the Doctor and the Master.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had the Ronnie.
Which, by the way, I mean, it's funny that Zion brings it up, because I heard that there was some spin-off media that indicated that the Monk was supposed to be an earlier incarnation of the Master, and I don't know how to feel about that.
I would say not. I would say that was something that because that was a long time ago. I think I read about that, and they've, as far as I know, they've since changed their tune.
Yeah, that's good, because I mean, it would be, what we need is more Time Lords, not less. And for me, it would just kind of be a disservice to just basically be, wave and go, well, it was just the Master in his third incarnation, or the Master in this incarnation.
Well, I mean, in the Tom Baker era and the Peter Davison era, we got more Time Lords. We got Lady Flavia.
But also like same thing. Same thing with I feel the same way about the War Chief being established as an earlier incarnation of the Master. It's like, let them be their own separate people.
They are.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I understand why people wrote that, but they are separate characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, if you want to learn the origins of the Master, there was a book written during the time of the missing adventures during the wilderness years by David A. McEntee called The Dark Path, and the Dark Path being the path that the character of the Master took, because the Master wasn't originally that bad a Time Lord. His name was Cochet, and he was trying to solve a problem, and the second doctor, thinking he knew better, solved it in a better way, which made Cochet turn kind of evil, and then he actually, spoiler alert, kills his own companion, and so Cochet becomes the Master. So
that sounds familiar to the story Master. Like how the Doctor is directly responsible for the coming of the Master.
Yeah. Oh, that Big Finish story. That was definitely. Oh, so the Meddling Monk, definitely an important and favorite character of mine as well. So I guess it's my turn.
Yes.
And as showrunner, I cheated.
How so? Boo.
I have two.
Oh, you have two?
I have two. And actually, I have three, but I don't talk about them. I would say Marco Polo was a great character, but that story completely doesn't exist. But it was an important story at the beginning. It was like story number 4, and it was the first major historical story. And it was the story was kind of narrated by Marco Polo's diary. But that's not where I'm going with this. My first important character, favorite character, important character that a lot of people wouldn't put on this list, Katarina.
Oh.
Katarina was a short-lived companion, about 5 episodes. She was in The Mythmakers, the last 2 episodes of that, and the first 3 episodes of the Daleks' Master Plan back in 1965. She was played by Adrienne Hill. She came from, as The Mythmakers was the story of the Trojan horse and all that stuff, 1st century BC. So she saw the Doctor as a god. The TARDIS was his chariot. He was a god. And the most important thing about her, and the most sad thing about her, was she was the first companion to die in the series.
A terrible death, too.
A terrible death.
Yeah.
She was trying to save the Doctor. They were in a spaceship. They were trying to go somewhere, and there were these 2 space pirates who had taken over and were going to hijack the ship, and the Doctor needed to save the universe against the Daleks. And Katarina they had her in an airlock, and one of the pirates had a knife to her, and to save the Doctor, the god, to save the Doctor so he could do his mission, she hits somehow she knew what it was, the airlock door, and she gets blown along with one of the space pirates out into space and dies. Terrible ending. But had that not happened, we never got Adric to die. So there's a reason for this. There was a reason for this. But no, Katarina was a very important character to put in there, if only for a one-trick pony, because they needed they wanted to kill a companion off. She was played by Adrienne Hill, who was born in 1937 and died in 1997. She died of cancer. A lot of our people that we like have died of cancer. The only real show she was in other than this was a BBC soap opera called 199 Park Lane, the same year she did the Doctor Who in 1965, but only 18 episodes aired of this show. And after that, typecast, she didn't really do acting. She did a few small parts. She moved to the Netherlands. Then she moved here to the United States. She came back to Britain, became a drama teacher, and worked in London. In 1985, a Children in Need special they did where companions and the doctors came to deliver a check from the TARDIS to Terry Wogan and the money that the Doctor Who Appreciation Society made. She was one of the companions that showed up in that little vignette they did. And her last known acting role was a library assistant in an episode of City Life, which was a New Zealand soap opera. And it was broadcast after her death. So she was, what do you think? Is she an important character because of the situation she was put in?
Yes. She was the beginning of the never-ending saga of companions dying with the Doctor.
Yeah. And that's why I brought up the reconstruction stories, because I think there's only one episode that she's in that exists. I think episode 2 or 3. I think the episode where she dies, I think exists, and nothing else of her work on Doctor Who exists as film.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about how her, like that last image of her just floating in space, lifeless.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've always wondered, how did they get away with that in a 60s TV? Because
in a children's show.
Exactly. I would have thought that it was something like that was too gruesome for TV airs, at least for a children's show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was gruesome. It was gruesome, but it proved that, at least to me, that the show wasn't a children's show. Maybe it was a family show. Maybe it was for adults. It wasn't a children's show. I don't think Doctor Who ever really was a children's show. They made it for children at the beginning, kind of. I mean, they put it in a children's time slot, but it was after sports, so the fathers were still kind of watching it, and it was before the dance party show where the teenagers were watching, so it wasn't really for the little kids.
Well, but
it never was.
Well, Mark, I think also, because that's the thing, I think also that there are some people that are thinking too much about what is a children's show nowadays in the United States. And
Okay.
we're talking British TV in the 1960s. We could be talking about two very different animals.
And we are. But children's television was very harmless in England back then, and that was not harmless. That was not harmless. That was, but and it brings up my second companion that I think was important, because there's a story he's in that is just so violent and wrong for a children's show. I'm talking about Stephen Taylor. Remember Stephen Taylor?
Okay.
Played by Peter Purves. He was actually in the Time Meddler. He was the companion that was in the Time Meddler.
And the Gunfighters too, right?
Right. He appeared in The Chase. The first story was The Chase. The last one with Ian and Barbara with the Daleks. He actually appeared in the first episode as a country bumpkin that they meet on the top of the Empire State Building. But in the last two episodes, he appears as it was Peter Purves. In the last two episodes, he appears as Stephen Taylor, and he was a prisoner of the Mechanoids, which were supposed to be the new enemies of the Daleks that just never worked. He was in 10 stories, 45 episodes. The only complete stories in the archives are the Time Meddler, the Ark, and the Gunfighters. People may say that The Gunfighters was a bad episode. It wasn't. It was a masterpiece, but that's getting ahead of itself. He was from the future. For his home era was the 23rd century. So I've picked a 1st century BC character and a 23rd century spaceship pilot as my 2 most important companions on the show.
Only Dr. Who.
And companions are supposed to be ciphers from the current day, and well, they're not. Stephen perseveres in the chase, and like I said, he stays with Vicky as a companion. When they get to Time Meddler, he doesn't believe they time traveled. He doesn't get that the TARDIS is a time machine. He has a big problem with that. He meets the Time Meddler, and he does a watch. Well, that proves we can't be back in the time of the Vikings and all that stuff. Not the Vikings. They were Vikings, but the primitive time they were in. So he goes, we can't be there. But he soon learns that, yes, he has stowed away on a TARDIS, a time machine. He's very strong-willed. He believes in right and wrong. He was the companion with Katarina. And, I should also mention with Katarina that the next companion added was Sarah Kingdon, played by Jean Marsh, who once was married to John Pertwee, and she gets killed off too.
I think same story, isn't it?
Same story. 9 episodes later, she gets killed off. But Stephen and Katarina, after this story where, after Sarah Kingdom dies, the episode that I'm talking about, the violent episode, the massacre, or is also known as the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, takes place in France when the revolution is happening, and it's just, the Doctor's hardly in it. And actually, William Hartnell plays 2 characters. He plays a cardinal, and he plays the Doctor. And Stephen actually thinks that the cardinal is the Doctor until the cardinal gets killed. And the Doctor's hardly in the episode, and it's mostly about Stephen trying to save people, he couldn't get over it, and he was going to leave the TARDIS after that. He was going to, in the last episode, he's like, Doctor, I'm done. This is it. And who else did that? That was like a Tegan kind of thing. Doctor, this is it. Tegan in the Dalek story, it's not fun anymore. Well, Stephen was going, it's not fun anymore. This is wrong. We should be able to change history. We should be able to save people. But a character comes into the TARDIS at that moment named Dodo, and her last name was Chaplet, and there was a character in the story back in the past called Anne Chaplet. So the Doctor goes, well, maybe it's a relative, which proves that she lived. And so he stays on. He eventually leaves in the story The Savages, where he decides to attempt responsibility of leading a combined society of savages and elders. But Peter Purves is after he left Doctor Who, he actually kind of got more famous because he started presenting a show called Blue Peter. And I know you know what Blue Peter is, Ed, right?
Yeah, yep.
It was a show for children which was about science and history and stuff. And they had Doctor Who things on it. But he did that for many years. He was on Blue Peter from 1967 to 1978.
Wow.
He did that show. He was very proud of that. He's very proud of Doctor Who. He still does the Big Finish. But Blue Peter was his major thing. After he did that, he started doing videos for companies, like to learn how to behave in a company, how to, training videos. And one of the training videos they did was a fake one on The Office that he did, the British version of The Office. So those are my favorite characters.
Those are very good choices.
Very good choices.
Very good choices.
Yeah. And I know you guys don't really know much about them because they're, well, maybe you might, because Ed, you didn't know who Stephen Taylor was. But so I'm not, I really,
well, I've seen Stephen Taylor, and I've seen
in the Meddling Monk story.
Yeah.
You've seen him. What did you think of him in that?
Yeah. Hey, well, I did. I did think it was kind of funny that that he's trying to get used to the idea of being in the TARDIS, and when he sees that the monk had left a watch, it's like, see, we're not back in time, haha, Oh, you fooled me, Doctor. That's really funny, but yeah, I know we're not back in time, and it's like, yeah. So that was kind of a great, funny way to introduce him. Yeah, not seeing him doing the massacre at St. Bartholomew's Eve. That's a shame, because that sounded like a really cool moment.
It is. It's such an important episode in the fact that it doesn't exist.
Yep. Well, it exists.
In the reconstructions. Yeah.
Reconstructions, and hopefully there's something. I mean, honestly, hope springs eternal. Because we have had moments where like they've found audio and they've been able to do those animated reconstructions that the BBC puts out. So hope springs eternal. They'll find something, and we'll have a moment where it'll come back. Where
one day it'll come back.
It'll come back. Yeah, they'll discover that. Yeah, here's we found audio from St. Bartholomew's Eve, and they'll do that animated stuff,
Well, they have found the audio. The audio exists in the reconstruction.
Oh, okay.
It does.
There you go, okay.
You can listen to it. It exists on BBC Audio CDs.
All right.
You can listen
all right.
to the
So
story.
there you go. So then all they need to do is they need to put it. They need to do what
Animate
they
it.
did
They need to animate it.
animate it. I mean, honestly, yeah, it would be great to have the original video, but if we have to do with animated, I'm sure they've had great success before with. So
I mean, they just did Macra Terror.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do more. All right, well, guys, that's all the time we have, and I think this was a great show. I can't wait for the future when we do the Patrick Troughton episodes.
Oh boy!
Pick our favorite characters from there. I will try to pick only one. I'll be fair this time. But until next time, folks. Bye from Mark Baumgarten, that's me, Zion Kiros, Eduardo M. Fryer, and Patricia Fryer. So long from Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio. Bye, everyone. Mark Who 42 has been written and presented by Mark Baumgarten, Trish Fryer, Eduardo M. Fryer, Iggy Matthews, and Zion Kiros. Mark Who 42 has been edited, directed, and produced by Mark Baumgarten. The theme music is by Sam Beckwith. Mark Who 42 is owned and copyrighted by Mark Baumgarten 2019. This is Odyssey Radio.